Okay, well, why don't we we'll go ahead and get started. If people want to jump in a little bit later, they can catch up a little bit. So um, this is our second in the winter development series that we offer every winter. And I guess this is our third year. Brent does a great job with that. Tonight we're going to talk about Fair Whistle, the platform we introduced this fall. We're going to talk about some referee abuse updates and then some other information as well. So as always, and I know Brent says the same thing, this is a interactive event. So if you have any questions or anything, let me know. If somebody throws something in chat, feel free to let me know that as well. I'm not always monitoring that. First things first, I asked Molly Vaughn to join us. Molly is the CFO for Nebraska State Soccer Association. Many of you have known Molly or at least met her. She's often at events, but she is our primary contact for Fair Whistle, and I've asked her to join us tonight as I kind of walk through this introduction in case I get stuck on working my way through the system, or if she has anything she wants to add. So Molly, feel free to jump in at any point. So with that, we'll kind of get started here. I'm going to give you an overview of Fair Whistle as a whole. Fair Whistle, it's a company based in Nashville. The co-founder of that event, of the company, is a gentleman by the name of Chris Redditch, who was here recently for our Hall of Fame event, a speaker at that event. But he's actually in Lincoln, or grew up in Lincoln. So he has ties to Omaha. I think he played soccer here in Omaha when he was a kid. So really nice guy. This company's been very responsive, and I think there's all sorts of opportunity going forward. But that's kind of a little bit of the background. They started in 2016, but they actually launched in 2022 in terms of working with MLS and NWSL. This platform is really geared towards higher level games. They do a lot with MLS and Pro, and so their foray into the youth arena is relatively new. Nebraska is only one of 3 states that are using Fair Whistle. The other 2 are Tennessee and Iowa. And again, at the youth level, I'm going to ask somebody to mute. I don't know who might that be. But if you haven't muted, throw your microphone on mute unless you want to throw a question at me. Anyway, so again, one of 3 states, and because of that, we have the opportunity to really have them manage and tailor make the platform how we need it to serve us, and they've done a great job with that. For fall of 2024, we had 2,527 games that were included in the Fair Whistle system. That means there was that number of games that had Fair Whistle surveys sent out to referees and also to head coaches for both teams. So a lot of data, and I have to give a lot of credit to Nebraska State Soccer because the cost of doing this is not insignificant. And so their support on a per game basis is a significant outlay of money, but it helps not only them from the soccer side, from the admin side, but also us from the referee side. I've listed there the number of games. We had almost 1,900 games in NYSL, just general play. We had 553 games in the Trianing League, and we had 85 games at State Cup. So a lot of data coming in, and that was a really good start for our first season. In terms of response rate, not bad for the first year. We're trying to get to 85 to 90% for both teams and referees. Coaches, about 61% response rate from coaches on the surveys that were sent to them. Referees did better. We were about 71% from referees. And the response rate on Trianing League games was about the same, 58% from teams, 71% from referees. So 7 out of 10 of you did a great job on the Fair Whistle surveys. What we find is that some of you and a lot of you do these surveys on every game, and then we have some referees that didn't do a single one. So I think we have a situation where a couple of maybe skewed results or a couple of referees that maybe don't contribute as much kind of reduce that rate. So we're gonna be managing that a little bit better and making sure that we're communicating with referees about getting those surveys done. I'm going to give you some information. Some of you have not, although you might have seen the surveys because you filled them out, you may not have a great understanding of how these surveys work, at least from the administrative side. So let me do this. We have different surveys for NYSL and the Training League. The Training League survey is focused more on beginning referees, and I'm going to show you an example of that in a little bit. There are 8 questions that relate to the referees, and I'm speaking now of the surveys that the coaches complete. You guys know what your surveys look like, but the coaches' surveys you may not have seen. So there are a total of 8 questions that the coaches fill out about the referee crew, and it is 8 questions for the head referee and then 8 questions for both ARs. And then they have a total of 6 questions that have to do with league issues, things like field conditions and so forth. So let me show you what the coaches fill out for their survey. And this is an actual survey that was done this season. I'm going to see if I can do this full screen here. This is a survey that was completed. Lori Hill was the referee. Bob and Steve were ARs on this match. This game was done on November 6th, and this is an NYSL game, not a Training League game. So these are the 2 teams involved, the scores, and the 2 coaches, and the coach, the survey is sent out automatically to the coach of the team, just like your surveys are sent to you, or the link to the surveys. These are the responses that the coaches filled out on this particular game. So we've got, on terms of Lori, coaches for the DA filled out as a 3. Remember, it's a 1 to 5 is your possible ranking. GEA just dropped in 5s across the board. Here's Bob's rankings. Again, good rankings here. 3s and 4s and 5s. What you're seeing here, folks, is kind of a baseline issue that we're going to have to address in the spring. Coaches are not particularly clear on whether the starting point is a 3. In other words, if the referee did everything pretty well, I'm going to give her a 3. And if she did some things really well, I'm going to give her a 4. Or is my starting point a 5 and I work down from 5? And we've seen this a lot during the first inaugural season of the Fair Whistle program, is we need to provide more guidance to coaches about what their starting point is. Otherwise, we have situations where the rankings really are not consistent across teams for the same performance on the same game. Sometimes we see that because this coach, the DA coach, is grumpy about a call, but we see it even when coaches are not at all upset about the performance. They just have a different starting point. Josh, do you have a question?
Yeah, my assumption is that DA lost this game. Is that possibly the reason for some of the lower scores?
It could be, but what we've seen is we'll see even the winning team will drop all 3s in here and the losing team will drop 5, mostly because we don't tell them, okay, start at a particular number and then go up or down based on performance.
Okay, that's fair.
I will show you, there is a field for winning and losing, and losing surveys are weighted less than winning surveys on the basis that losing coaches may be less inclined to give a positive review. So Fair Whistle does weight out who the winning and losing team is. That's why we record the scores up here. And as you noted, DA lost this match, but we've seen this 3s and 5s on games where the score really wouldn't indicate that was the reason it was done. Good question, though. We also have a different survey to go to the coaches for Training League. And as I mentioned a moment ago, Training surveys are geared more towards beginning referees. So you'll see some introductory questions here. Did the referee show up 30 minutes early? Was the referee dressed appropriately? And did the referee check in teams? Obviously, we don't have those questions on NYSL report because those are things we're going to assume NYSL and more experienced referees handle out of course. We do have similar questions about use of the whistle. Again, we're interested in whether the referee called any fouls at all. We don't have, as we did on the NYSL coach survey, any KMI discussion. Again, all we're trying to do is get a baseline feel for how this referee did. In this instance, again, 2-1 for BSC for the Bennington team. that may be the reason for some higher rankings here, possibly. Or we could have the same issue of 3s versus 5s because I don't know where to start. And again, we're going to have some work with the clubs between now and spring about how that's going to work out. But again, as you can see, we've got questions about referees' confidence. Those are key components to new referee development. Work rate and general level of effort. Obviously, again, baseline components, and then teamwork is the same. That indicator is on both the NYSL and the Training League survey. In this particular game, there were no ARs, just the referee on the U10 match. So we don't have survey responses for the AR1 and AR2. Molly, are they working on revising this Training League survey to drop out the AR1, AR2 questions when there's not an AR1, AR2 assigned? Molly on the spot. Yeah, so on a going forward basis, these questions will not be sent to coaches when there are one referee matches, which all U10 games are by definition single referees. So again, something that's in the offing for 2025. Any questions at all about what the surveys look like for you guys?
Jim, I got a question. Are these surveys just sent out to the head coaches then, or is it head and assistant coaches if they're listed?
That's a really good question for Molly to hop in on. Molly, can you help me?
Yep. So they are actually sent to 2 contacts per team. Typically we tell the head coach to fill it out, but as you know, they don't always do that. So we did see that a lot of team managers were filling it out. Once one person fills that out, it locks it so they can't both submit it. So it will only be 1 contact per team.
Okay.
And for the referees, as you know, it goes to every member of the referee crew. Our preference is that the lead referee, the head referee, does that, not the AR. But if you're an AR on a game and you get a reminder that the survey hasn't been filled out for your game, our preference is that you reach out to the referee, the center, ask he or she to fill that out. If that doesn't get done, then by all means, feel free. Ray, did you have a question for me?
2, and I think you already addressed this, Jim, but the Google form as a referee trainer, is that going to work in tandem with Fair Whistle, or are we going to incorporate the referee coach's feedback in Fair Whistle?
Great, great question, and I'll get to that in a little bit. I've got some discussion on that. So hold that. If I miss you as we get further on in this presentation, make sure you follow up. But I think I'm going to address that in a bit. So
I think the second piece is just as like a post game as a crew, if you have a full crew, just communicating with the other referees like, hey, I'm the head referee. I'm going to take care of Fair Whistle, even though you're going to get it in your email inbox. Right. I'll take it. Or maybe I just don't care and I'm like, Tony Delacqua, go crazy. Why don't you go and complete this for me? Whatever. So
that's great. We don't necessarily have a preference for that, although we do. The reason we prefer the center to fill that out, they may have a better feel for coach interaction as opposed to an AR2 who's on the opposite side. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is to get a survey in place. And again, our completion rate's fairly good for the first season, but we like to get to that 85, 90%. So, okay, so that's surveys. Let me give you a little bit more information, kind of show you what we do, what we have available on our side, on the admin side. So when I log into the program, I get to see, this is the dashboard. And let me make sure that I'm sharing that appropriately. Yeah, so you guys see the dashboard. This is the Nebraska State Soccer Fair Whistle dashboard. And this is, as I said, we did 2,527 in terms of games. We have an initial display of officials, and then we have initial display of games. So what this does for us, I can see fairly quickly by color coding. Blue is a 4 to a 5 on a ranking. Green is a 3 to a 4, and a orange is a 2.99 or below. We can see on this particular game that the officials did not fill out the survey for the coaches. Unless I have that backwards, Molly, let me take a look here. Okay, on this particular game, Neither coach filled out the survey for the referees or the ARs. So it's not submitted, is what you'll see. But the official did submit a report for the teams, both the home team and the away team. And you can see there's a red down here for league compliance. And most often, as you see here, that relates to poor field conditions. So these are the league compliance questions. But again, one of the problems we run into, candidly, is that when we have a fair whistle opportunity here and coaches don't fill out their information, that's a problem. So again, trying to get that rate up. I talked a little bit about the color coding here. We can see at a glance how our referees are doing. We can see at a glance who's missing surveys and who's not. The dashboard that I referred to a moment ago, this is your composite score. And we're going to talk a little bit about scoring here for in a little bit when I get to a different app. But this is the composite score for our various referees. And as you can see, we have 189 in the system. You have to have at least 3 competitions to be included in this composite. But the more games you have, the more accurate your composite is. If you've got an individual that only did 3 competitions, this score is not going to be particularly reliable just because of the sample set. But again, something that we can at least use as a starting point. As I said, there's a composite score and effective score, and I'll show you that in a little bit. The effective score is weighted based on the number of surveys that the coaches have submitted on a particular referee and other various factors. So that's more of a valuable ranking or a valuable number than is the composite score that you just saw. We have a different application that we use that provides us specific information for referees, and I'm going to show you that now. So this is an overlay for Fair Whistle. We call it Shiny App, but it allows us to see specific, as you can see, all of the referees in our system are in this application. This is Jeff Barton's data, and FYI, I did call Jeff and told him I was going to pick on him tonight. So I think he's on this call. He can weigh in and defend his performance if he wants to. But these are this is a composite score. Here we have the composite score, 4.2. That's not his effective score. That's a different place. But he did 48 matches and had 74 surveys submitted. Jeff did a lot of games. He had quite a good score, composite score of 4.2. And this is how he's ranking compared to the average. So as you can see, the average is the blue, the darker spider web. The yellow is where Jeff ranked. So in all these instances, he did significantly better than the average. Match control, he ranked 4.27, 4.17 teamwork, but again, good performance overall. This chart here shows you Jeff's scores, his composite score over time. So you get some scores that are pretty low, and we're going to see that in a little bit. So this is not an uncommon graph that we see that referees, for whatever reason, a survey comes in that's quite good, and then all of a sudden you have an outlier that's here, right? So, and then we have coaches are able to provide significant or specific feedback about the referee. And you'll note here we have the column for whether the coach won or lost. That was the question we had a moment ago. But these are the specific comments that the coaches gave on Jeff Barton. Jeff says lies. Yeah, is this the lie down here, Jeff, when they said best referee we've had all season, something like that? One of the top referees in the state, must have paid off one of the 402 teams. But again, you can see here.
That's sarcasm. That's the losing coach.
Really good comments here. Okay. Then you have some comments that are not so good. Overall, from the beginning of the match, it did not seem like he wanted to be there. Granted, it was a 5 p.m. match on a Sunday. Now, remember, we we weight these comments based on whether the team won or lost. But again, these are really interesting comments that we're able to see on a referee. That's why we think these surveys are so important, because we can get there's a trend here, right? Jeff did a great job. Thought the game got a little chippy. Great job. Did a great job. So there's consistently over time, again, although we have the outliers, we have consistent good reports on Jeff. He did not have any KMIs. Molly, is that right? Does Shiny App show KMIs here?
It does, yeah. So it'll be all the way at the bottom.
Yeah, so this did not come out. We don't have any KMIs on, Jeff didn't have any, I think, Jeff, you reported some KMIs, but we didn't have any on Jeff. Is that right? I think that's correct.
Correct. I did
think
report a couple. I know that.
So this would be KMIs by coaches on Jeff. Is that right, Molly?
Yep.
Okay, so we didn't have any KMIs reported on Jeff, and we'll talk about what key incidents are in a little bit. But again, globally, a really good report here, and we can do them for everybody. So, but what we do find is, coaches get a little grumpy, and sometimes it's reflected in the survey. So, for example, this referee, he only did one game and has quite a poor score. This is me, of course. And you can read here the comment that the referee or that the coach provided on this report, which talk about lies, Jeff. I'm right there with you, buddy. So the coach thought I was snippy with him, which I was, because he was being kind of a jerk. But anyway, so the important thing to do is understand that, trends matter. One poor feedback or one bad ranking on one match doesn't trend out anything. So again, the referees that have a lot of surveys in a season, we get the benefit of that. Here's AR1, AR2 scores. Oh, let's go back to Jeff. Any questions so far? Here's AR1 and AR2 scores for Jeff. We are going to try and get Fair Whistle to combine AR1 and AR2 scores, because we don't have a great distinction in NYSL youth game about who's AR1 and 2. And then interestingly enough, we have, these are all the rankings for the referees in the NYSL system. And you see Lori Hill, who had 44 games, had the best overall composite score, or effective score rather, of any referee in our system. So, and Jeff, you're a measly 6. I'm not going to show you where I'm at in this sequence, because I don't think it goes down that far. But again, really good job. And this provides an ability on our part to quantify referee performance. We can do the same thing with the Training League. Here's the Training League breakdown. Brian Nelson, who's really not in the Training League, but did a lot of Training League games. But then we can see how young referees are doing. And we can sort this by AR1, AR2, fourth official, and so forth. So again, globally, super helpful tool for us to kind of figure out what we're doing here. Any questions on this data, or what we're trying to collect, or what we're doing, or how the data is presented to us?
Yeah. Hey, Jim, I guess, and maybe, I don't know if you're going to get there or if I missed, if you already said it, but so what is your guys' goal of getting this information to referees? Because obviously it would be helpful at times for me to be able to see some of that. How do you guys present this feedback?
Well, so this is a really good question, and it's one that we're struggling with. Coach surveys are currently not available. So we don't make this information available to referees. And the question, of course, is why? And this is why. This is a survey response that was given by a coach this last season on a referee. And if you glance through that, what you'll see is, and I didn't bother to look to see if this coach won or lost his game. I'm going to speculate that he lost. But this type of feedback, I don't feel is incredibly positive or constructive. When the survey response leads with this was one of the worst referee displays that I have ever seen, I candidly don't put a lot of weight in what this coach has to say. And so the struggle, Jeff, and it's a great question, is how do we make this information available to you guys in a way that's constructive? I might be able to send this to you, Jeff, and say, hey, we got this on the game you did Wednesday, what the heck happened? And I think you and I could have a conversation. I can't send this feedback to a 14-year-old referee who's just done his third game. So there's not a really good way to make the raw data available to you folks. But what we're working on and what Fair Whistle is working on is a referee portal that may be available in the spring of 25, but more likely in the fall, where referees can log in and see their data. And I'm going to show you a little bit about what that might look like. So these are screenshots that I got from Fair Whistle just today that kind of shows what the program may look like in 2025. So this obviously is for a referee not in our system, Robert Vince, or however you pronounce his name. This would be a portal that you would access. You would have your name, obviously. This individual does USL games. As I mentioned, Fair Whistle does higher level games. So that's who this referee obviously is, a USL official. It has some information about, what region, the performance that he worked in. Obviously, some of this won't have a lot of value for us when we just do local games. But this gives some overall rankings, Jeff, to you guys that tells you kind of how you're doing, right? It provides a dashboard. I'm not sure, again, this is in a beta and it's not even been launched to us, but this would be what it might look like. Okay, so this would be your dashboard as you log into your specific account. And then let me show you the raw data that comes in. This is similar to what we get. This is not quite as, I think it's a little bit more middle of the road than some of the responses we get from our youth coaches. But these are the comments that were presented on this referee over these various games. And again, you can see that this is raw data. It hasn't been manipulated or managed in any way. And they aren't nothing like this is the worst referee I've ever seen, like we saw a moment ago. But nevertheless, this is raw data submitted on this referee on these various games. Okay. And then what Fair Whistle does is they're using AI to take this raw data. They dump all of the comments into either a chat GPT or the equivalent, and they create a summary for areas of improvement. And let me show you what that looks like. So you just saw the raw data. This is what Fair Whistle generates based on the raw data. There are repeated concerns about inconsistency in foul calls, and all of this information, recommendation, observation, recommendation, all of this data is presented in a way that's constructive, not demeaning, derogatory, or abusive, and is included with that is a recommendation of maybe what things to do or consider to improve that particular area of concern. So Jeff, this is ultimately what's on the horizon for Fair Whistle, is a process or a portal that you folks can access and obtain your data, not the raw data, because there's limited value to that, but a kind of a global review of your performance that you can take back and apply to your game. But this isn't available yet. What I do have is the AI prompts that Fair Whistle has generated to create these Fair Whistle Plus reports. And I've toyed with ways to dump your specific commentary on your games into the system and generate something like this just through a chat GPT thing. The problem is that there's 189 referees in the system, and there's not a good way to manage through that. So we're working on that, but ultimately it's a great point. How do we get feedback to the referees? This is what's on the horizon, but in the meantime, we don't have a great answer to that. Any questions thus far? As I said, hopefully in the spring, but more likely the fall of 2025.
Yeah, sorry, one more question. Does it
Yeah.
do any, like, you showed different rankings and scores and stuff. So does it do anything based on like division or difficulty? Like somebody that gets an average of 4 doing all U13 games is not necessarily on the same level that gets an average of 4 doing all U19 games, right?
Right.
So is
So-
there any of that in the system?
So what I showed you, let me see if I can get back to it here. Let's see if I can get back to my Shiny Apps app here. So in this system, if you look at rankings, you have something called effective score and composite score. So Lori Hill has a higher effective score than, oh my gosh, has a higher effective score than Derek Collins, but her composite score is lower. So one of the things Molly and I spoke about just this afternoon is the effective score, which is a weighted average based on a variety of factors, including the number of games that you do, is higher than your composite score, which is the figure we're looking at where you're a 4 or a 3 or 3.70 or whatever, right? But I did reach out to Fair Whistle today in preparation for this presentation about what goes into effective score versus composite score. In other words, what are the weights? And I didn't get an answer in time for this presentation.
Okay,
So,
yeah, I was curious on that because obviously we have the different divisions, right? So if they could give information based on that, because even that somebody could get all, you could be rated super high in like the division Red League,
right?
They have, they're really low in the Premier One, right? So I just didn't know, since we have those different divisions, if they can actually cut the data that way.
Yeah, they parse the data. They have all of the Fair Whistle data is recorded based on division, and I'm going to show you in a little bit. Maybe I didn't click on this link. I have a link to, gosh, I thought I had it in my system. I have a link to, we received an end of season, oh, here it is, end of season report. We did get this end of season report from Fair Whistle that provided us the breakdown as far as head referee, not for all of our referees, but for the top 25. Same thing for AR. And then we also got a breakdown for, these are performance league rankings, for training league rankings. And then we also got all of the club rankings. Remember, you fill out rankings on clubs. So this kind of gives you an idea of who some of the better clubs are in terms of sportsmanship score, who some of the less enthusiastic clubs are. I will tell you that they're redoing these rankings for clubs based on Sporting Gretna Elkhorn had a higher ranking because and Columbus because they had a higher number of games. Isn't that right, Molly?
Sorry.
I think she's
yeah.
Yeah, so they're reworking the sportsmanship score and the rankings here because of the weighting is a little bit off. And then we also have, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it takes into account like how many games they had in, and so it's kind of favoring those bigger clubs. So we asked them to redo that and not take in that so much into consideration. And we redid it and made our own kind of score for Nebraska State Soccer. And we weighed our score more on them completing stuff and their ratings from the referees for spectators and coaches.
And then they gave us a breakdown for each team. So Southeast Soccer Club, the Panthers, had a 5 ranking out of 18 surveys. And you can see they've got a report for all of the teams that played within the Nebraska that had Fair Whistle reports completed on them. So we've got a lot of data. It just is a matter of kind of working through that data. Clear as mud, maybe? Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. I want to touch a little bit on key incidents. Those of you that did Fair Whistle surveys this season had a number, might have reported key incidents. We had 139 key incidents reported in the fall. And those key incidents look like this. Let me get result 2. So these are all the key incidents that we had reported. Again, there were 139 of those. Some of these are, here's kind of how it looks in my system. And then I can click on one of them. And this was a report submitted by Madison Craig, who's a coach for OUSC, and kind of describes what the event was. These are our commentary back. Coach, we appreciate the comments. Please let us know if you have any issues in the future. I will tell you that what we found from coaches is a lot of this was a bad call, or the referee missed a penalty kick. And what we learned relatively early in the season is we really can't do much with those types of commentary without video. We did not make it a habit of reaching out to referees. I'm trying to find one of the ones with the. So here's an example. Foul recognition. Black was defending the goal. White runs into the black in our defensive box, and the referee gives White a penalty kick. Well, the reality is that absent video, I can't do anything. So we reached out to the coach, and this coach, who was a coach for Evo, submitted a video through Fair Whistle, and we could then look through that Fair Whistle or that video and figure out whether that was something we needed to talk with the referee about or not. So, but for many of these, if it's referee missed a call in the midfield, we didn't do anything with that because we really can't without video. This also includes, for example, things like a referee might report a red card or a yellow, even a caution as a key incident. It would be something about the AR didn't show up. We only had 2 referees. So not all of those 139 were critical incidents, but a lot of them were ones we had to manage a little bit. Both Jim Busher and I worked through these key incidents. The ones that were referee related, the ones that were league related were handled by Molly, Troy, and I think Jason did some of them. But we worked through all of the key incidents that dealt with referee performance and or misconduct directed at referees. Any questions so far? That I heard somebody ask. As I said, for bad call key incidents, our general response was give us a video. If the coach didn't respond with a video, we closed the case. And we really didn't invest time or effort in calling referees up and asking why they made a bad call. That's not productive. We did have a couple of instances where Jim Busher would contact referees to clarify what happened, specifically if there was something that was a penalty kick awarded for an obstruction in the box, for example. And we did meet with one referee after the fall season who was really trending across a large number of games in terms of player management, coach management, and provided that referee some ideas about how they could maybe improve that scope of their game. So again, we're not as tied up. I'm really kind of indifferent to the score. And to that extent, Jeff, I don't, whether somebody got a 4.9 or a 4.2, or in my case, a 3.17, I'm not as concerned about the score as much as I am whether there is whether the commentary. That's what we found was truly helpful. Okay. Fair whistle goals for 2025. We need to clarify expectations for clubs. Starting point for rankings, that complaints of bad calls without video is not of great value. We need to clarify expectations for referees. We need to let you folks know what key incidents are and what key incidents are not. Cautions and red cards are not key incidents. But we also want to make sure that you folks are using both Fair Whistle and the report abuse email to report incidents of misconduct towards referees. We want to improve the process for NSSA and NRDP to respond to key incidents. We had some issues with timeliness. We had some issues with confusion about who was going to respond to which one. It got better as the season went on. We need to incorporate the surveys as part of the training league. And this is the point you raised a moment ago. I think it was you, Ray. Fair Fair Whistle would like to, and we're asking them to figure out a overlay that incorporates a Fair Whistle survey that trainers, mentors, referee coaches can complete to evaluate referee performance. This would be good not only for the training league, as trainers and mentors go out and watch brand new referees perform, it would also have value for D&G assessments on higher level referees, and to the extent that both Pro, MLS, and everybody else from the top down uses some type of evaluation to work on referee development, this makes sense. So I don't know when Fair Whistle is going to do this. We've talked to them about the need to incorporate something specifically for the training league, so we can have some quantifiable measure to track progress of training league referees. Unfortunately, that's in development. So the answer to your question, Ray, for the near term, we're going to still be using the Google form. Any questions on Fair Whistle at all? None at all? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about misconduct and how that for the fall season. We had a total of 15 incidents of misconduct towards referees, and by 15 incidents, I mean incidents that were worthy of a response from NRDP, not a coach yelling and getting a red card. We track those, and then Molly generates a spreadsheet reporting all of these incidents. We had 2 by players. Those are relatively rare. We don't have a lot of misconduct towards referees from players, principally because most of our players are youth players, and we don't see a lot of that. 8 by coaches, 5 by parents. Kind of how the tally was worked out for the fall. That's about what it was in the spring, so we don't see a significant increase or decrease in the number of incidents. Although we do need to. Well, I'll get to what we're going to do with parents in a little bit. All but one of these incidents was managed in-house. So what we've done in the last 2 or 3 years with developing a rapport with various clubs is I can call Carl Ostrand at Sporting, or Ann Lebo at Elkhorn, or Ryan Davis at Sting, and say, hey, we had this incident, your coach was acting up on this game, and 9 times out of 10, the question I get back is, what would you like us to do? And it'll be anywhere from, this coach needs to sit a game, or maybe 2 games, or as you see here, we had 2 coaches in the fall season that had to sit 3 games. We had 1 parent suspended for the remainder of the season, couldn't watch any of their kids' games for the rest of the season. And we had 1 team spectators, all of the spectators banned for an entire game. So on that particular game, and my recollection, it was a U12 game. Is that right, Molly? All of the parents were sitting sitting a field over if they wanted to watch their kid's game. So that's the type of sanctions that were levied this fall. But in all of these cases, these sanctions were levied by the club or the parish, not by NRDP. So they asked us what we would like to do. In the case, I called up the DOC for one of the coaches that was suspended for 3 games. I told him that's what we wanted to do. The coach, the DOC met with the coach. Coach was not happy, but the DOC was, that's what you got to do. That's what happens when you act up. So I don't know that we're having a significant decrease in events or incidents. I do know that our ability to manage those without in-house, so to speak, without NRDP involvement has significantly improved. There's one policy update. We did have 1 instance this fall where a coach was asked to manage the spectators and refused to do so. The disciplinary policy does not include any sanction for a coach that fails to adhere to the referee's request to manage that team's spectators. So we are updating the disciplinary policy. So in the spring of 25, if you ask a coach to manage the spectators and the spectators don't, and the coach refuses to do so, that can be a disciplinary action or give rise to one. But again, that's really, really rare. We only had 1 of those this fall. And we kind of an issue that we're still wrestling with. We have two clubs that are really problematic. They don't play in the system. We don't have a lot of communication with them. If there's an issue with players, coaches, or spectators, I don't have a point of contact for those clubs. So we're trying to figure out how to manage these problem clubs. And as I said, there's only two of them, because unlike the others that I mentioned a moment ago, where I can call up the DOC and be confident that the issue is going to be handled in-house, for these two problem clubs, that's not the case. And we need to figure out how to manage through that, whether that be sitting down with the club board or president prior to the start of the season. Again, that's something we are still trying to wrestle through and figure out how to manage. So that's kind of it in terms of misconduct. Does anybody have any questions on misconduct or what we're doing, or concerns about how these cases are managed?
Sorry, I'm mobile, so this is Steve Keneally. Hopefully you can hear me, but how is that being enforced? I mean, is that being left up to the referee? How is he to know that that's the situation for the next game?
Say that again, how's what?
Yeah, so how is, if a coach is being suspended from a match, how is the next crew supposed to be knowledgeable of that, and or who's enforcing that?
That's not, we don't roll that down to the referees. We do advise NYSL of that, just like when we have situations with coaches being suspended for a match during the course of the season. NYSL has a record of that, but we don't pass that on to the referee specifically. Hey, make sure this coach isn't on the bench next time.
Jim, so the coach won't be on the roster. So when they print out their game day rosters, if a player's suspended or a coach is suspended, they will not be on the roster. So that makes so, but they can't be on the bench. If they're not on the roster, they can't be on the bench. So that's how that's dealt with on the league side.
Thank you. Thank you for weighing in. I wasn't aware of that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Again, the main focus of, as we try and manage this bad behavior, is create collaborative, cooperative environments with clubs, administrators, boards, club officers, so that NRDP and you guys have to spend less time investigating and disciplining coaches, players, and spectators, and that those are handled more in-house. And again, we've made great strides in the last 3 years in that regard. But again, still a ways to go. So the one thing I was asked during the course of this last fall season is why we don't make this information available to the referees. We do not communicate with the referees about, hey, this is what we did with the coach, in the same way that we don't tell coaches what happened with a referee when they make a report of some referee either mistake or misconduct or misbehavior. We do have referees that maybe don't always engage coaches in a way we would like, but we never go back to coaches and say, hey, we talked to that referee and we told him not to do it again. And the reason for that is really pretty basic. If we have a referee that has a complaint of referee abuse, and we work through the club, work through the system, what we're concerned about is either a referee or a coach thinks, well, that's not good enough, or that's not harsh enough, or so we don't really do, and really aren't planning on doing any type of follow-up reporting about this is what happened. That doesn't mean that we don't investigate and deal with every specific instance of referee abuse that you guys send in. But again, there's not going to be a process that we put in place where we call you up and let you know what we did to the coach. That's not likely to change. Okay, referee misconduct. I got a few more minutes here. Let me deal with our last issue. We did have an increase in this last fall in incidents of racial slurs, particularly racial slurs occurring in games. What we found, maybe not surprisingly, is most of the time these were players directing racial slurs at other players. And I think part of that is there's a lexicon that maybe teenagers use that includes racial terms as a derogatory comment. Nevertheless, that's not something we can have happen in these games. We did have a couple of comments directed at a referee that accused the referee of being racist. Not calling the referee a racial name or a derogatory racial name, but calling the referee racist. Maybe it was a Latino team and the referee awarded a penalty kick, and a comment was made by, in generally a spectator or coach, that the referee did that because the referee is racist. So these are the types of racial slurs that we're seeing predominantly. And so what we've done, and Jason was instrumental in doing this, we have adopted a policy that's modeled after the same policy that is used at regional and national events, whether it be, you know, youth regionals or youth national events, about how they instruct their referees to manage racial slurs. We have two specific scenarios: when the actual comment is heard and when the actual comment is reported. So in other words, if you actually hear the comment, you can do one thing. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, that player over there just called me blank, there's a whole different set of, a different pathway for if it's just reported to you, but you don't actually hear it. And then we have also specific scenarios dealing with spectators. I'm going to show you what the policy is. I'm going to make this available to you. This is, we believe, in final form, but I'd be interested to get your feedback about whether you think this has value. So let me kind of drip through it. I do have a couple more minutes. A derogatory slur doesn't necessarily have to be racial. It can be anything about, could be about a person's race, gender, ethnicity, national origin, etc. And this is how we kind of laid this out. This is how to address slurs from players, team officials when they're heard. Okay, when you actually hear the comment, you're supposed to stop the game immediately. The entire referee crew, not just the referee, but the referee and ARs as well, are to meet with the player, team officials who made the abusive comment, both head coaches of both teams, and advise the coaches from both teams what was said. The offending player, team official is shown a red card. As we know, a racial or derogatory slur is by all definition a send-off. You record that send-off just like you would any other card, and then you restart the match as quickly as possible. In that instance, you'll do a report both in stack, in the red card report. You'll also do a key incident report in fair whistle and include exactly what was said, no matter how abusive or offensive that may be, and all the information you would normally include: name, number of the player, team official, who the comment was directed to, time of match, etc. So that's if you hear it, okay? If it's reported to you but not heard, similar type of process, but a little bit different. The game should be stopped as soon as possible. Doesn't have to be immediately. The entire referee crew engages with the complaining team player first and determine what was said. What we are not wanting you to get in is to a debate of whether that player or that team official made the comment or not. That's not what you're going to do, and you can specifically say that. Look, we're not here to decide whether this person said it or not. That's not what you're there for. What you are there to do is let the entire, and this is away from the benches, not in from the team bench. You're going to let the coaches that any additional incidents will result in immediate ejection or temporary suspension of the match, and you're not going to give any additional warnings for language or excuse me, for poor or derogatory behavior. This is the one and only warning they get for both teams. What we're trying to do is kind of put the brakes on any continued behavior. You also are going to require the coaches to address the team and allow them time to do that. So the coach can say, we hope, to the team, okay, knock it off, no more of this. We're going to restart the match, and then we're going to make a report. That's if it's reported to you, not heard. Notice there's no card for racial slurs or slurs that are reported to you that you don't hear. You can't send a player off for that, or a team official. All you can do is try and manage off of it and make sure it doesn't happen the rest of the game. And then finally, if you have something from a spectator, Again, if it's heard, you can stop the game as soon as possible. It doesn't have to be immediate. Send the players to their bench, talk to the coaches, identify the spectator if you can. If you can identify the spectator, that spectator is removed. And the game is not restarted until the spectator leaves. And you do want to get the spectator's name because we'll follow up with it from an NRDP side. If it's only been reported to you, but the spectator can't be identified, you're going to ask the coaches to engage the spectators and tell them, see if we can figure out who said what. And if so, you'll manage that appropriately. Again, ask that spectator to be removed. Okay. At that point, you're also going to ask the head coach to inform their spectators that no more of that type of conduct or commentary is going to be permitted. And then you're going to do a report. Okay. So a lot of data. I mean, again, we try to be pretty clear, but there's a lot of information included in this directive. We will be sending it out relatively soon, in whether it might be in a newsletter, it might be in some other format. But again, what we will do is ask for any type of input. We think this is manageable. Again, this is what they do at the regional and national events. And so our hope is that we can provide some insight to you folks about how to manage this process when it gets a little bit bogged down with some of these comments that people frankly should not be making, obviously. So we'll send this out. Again, feel free to let me know what your thoughts are. You can reach out to Brent or Jim Busher or anybody else on NRDP if you have some feedback. So that's all I got, folks. I don't know if there's any other questions or comments or thoughts you had. Any other questions about what we went over tonight?
Hey, Jim, I had a quick question about that last page. So,
yeah.
So if you don't hear it, and let's say it happens 10 minutes in, and you get everybody together, they talk to their teams, and then another player comes up 20 minutes later and says it happens again. Do you redo that whole thing you did the first time? What do you do in multiples if it happens again in that situation when you don't hear it?
Right. Obviously, our first hope is that doesn't. One of the things we have to be a little bit wary of, particularly if there's a prior incident in a game, is that process is weaponized in some way, that they think, okay, I'm going to report something that didn't actually happen and see if I can really screw this team over. I guess what I would tell you folks is to use your best judgment. Obviously no more warnings and painting yourself into a corner and then something else is reported and you don't do anything about it is a problem. I think at some point it makes it's kind of a case by case basis. How much do you believe that actually happened? Is this an ongoing issue? Is the game going to get out of hand? Do we have a problem with physical altercations? So I would defer to you folks as, person on the scene about how to manage through that. That's not a great answer. I apologize for that. I hate to tell you, if it's reported again, immediately terminate the match. And I hate to tell you, if it's reported again, keep playing. I wish it was that clear. I'm afraid I don't have that insight. Brent, do you have any questions? Jason, anybody else want to jump in with their thoughts on that?
So at the regional national level, I mean, it's a little different because the teams are a little more like held accountable. I agree with you. It's got to be a case by case scenario. I can tell you at the regional national events, once we tell them, once it happens once, it doesn't happen again because they tell the entire team. But I think for us, it just has to be a case by case scenario. Because you could have one team that's frustrated, you don't know if it's said. So I think you hit it on the head. You take it case by case with the environment, I guess. There really isn't like a black or white answer for this. It's just I can tell you the conversations we had that it involved the referees or the clubs this year. After we had sent things out to the clubs, it really, and Molly can speak because after Troy sent it out, I think it really decreased. I don't even know if we had any after that. Now we did have players, like you said, calling referees racist. That didn't change. But I think after the clubs were notified that this is how it was going to handle, I think it really decreased. Molly, do you recall that we had any late in the season?
I don't think late in the season. No.
And a lot of this player-to-player stuff that's
Yeah.
just a term. That's just a term. It's
We-
become, like calling somebody another bad term. This one just
I-
happens to be racial. So
And Jim, we dealt with that one at State Cup, and Jim and I talked to the coaches about the one that we had at State Cup because we didn't know until after the game. The coaches were really like apologetic, and they took care of it like immediately with the player and the parent. So yeah, that's all. There's not a black and white. I think you hit on the head, Jim. Take it case by case.
Jim,
I
can you
know-
post this on the resources section of NRDP website, just so we have something to refer to in case it gets lost in my email?
yeah, what we'll do is we're going to send this out in a newsletter. It hasn't been sent out publicly. We didn't generate it till quite late in the season, and frankly, we wanted kind of to sit on it and walk through it. But we'll send that out, and we'll probably do something either through the resources page at the referee seminar. By the way, that's March 15th. I think that's a Saturday. That's the referees seminar will be March 15th. It's either 15th is a Saturday. So we'll talk about it then. But we'll make sure it's available to all you folks so you have it in hand before the spring season, certainly. Luke Allen mentioned in chat that he used something similar on a match in Colorado, and this process seemed to work pretty well. So again, we'll put it in stack, Steve. Thanks for that. We'll make sure we push these out as much as we can and make it as readily available as we can. And by the way, yes, KMI is a key match incident, although fair whistle uses that term differently than U.S. soccer. So a key match incident in the referee world is not how they necessarily mean that in fair whistle. Fair whistle is any type of comment that that you think needs some type of follow-up by NRDP. So anything that you think deserves follow-up or is needing follow-up, push it as a KM, report it as a KI, because we look at all of those, every single one of them. And sometimes if it's put in the comment section of your survey, we don't always see that. So please use that KI. I see I'm a little bit over here. Any other questions at all in terms of what we're doing or what we were doing tonight or how we're moving forward with these programs? No? Okay, again, if you have any questions for me, feel free to follow up, send me an email, give me a call, send me a text. I'll be happy to respond. Appreciate everybody's participation. Did you have any questions or any comments, Brent, before we cut everybody loose? Brent's
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. We got you, Brent, or we did. The next winter development series is in January. If you look at the NRDP website, that gives you the date, time. It's at 7 o'clock. I don't have the website up in front of me, but you guys can check. The Zoom link is included. If you click on the activity, you can click on it'll have the Zoom link in the description. So feel free to jump on. Sorry, there you go, Brent, go ahead.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, my app froze up on me on my phone. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for participating. Again, if you have any requests for topics or anything like that, be sure to let us know. We're happy to give everybody what you want and need during this off season.
Thanks, guys. Have a good evening. Have a good holiday as well. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.